What if you were falsely accused and sent to jail by a billionaire, only to find a way to take him down? Naomi Mitchell moved through the dining room of La Lumiere, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant, with the grace of someone who had mastered the art of invisibility. At 27, she was a striking figure, tall, with deep brown skin and eyes that held a quiet strength. Her braided hair was pulled back neatly, and her crisp black uniform clung to her like a second skin, a reminder of her role in this world of privilege. The restaurant's crystal chandeliers glittered above, casting light on patrons who thought nothing of dropping hundreds on a single meal. For Naomi, every shift was a tightrope walk, serving, smiling, and swallowing the subtle slights that came with the job. She balanced a tray of champagne flutes, her hands steady despite the ache in her arms. Her life was a juggling act, 12-hour shifts, caring for her mother, whose heart condition had worsened, and sending money to her younger brother, Jamal, a freshman at Howard University. Naomi's dreams of owning her own catering business, of a life where she wasn't scraping by, felt like stars too distant to touch. Yet she carried on, her calm demeanor a shield against the world's inequities. Her colleagues admired her. "Naomi's the backbone of this place," said Maria, a fellow server, as they prepped for the dinner rush. "She never cracks, no matter how bad it gets." But Naomi felt the cracks forming. The microaggressions, patrons who assumed she was incompetent, managers who overlooked her for promotions wore her down. Still, she refused to let bitterness take root. She had a plan, a quiet rebellion brewing beneath her polite smile. Vincent Hale was a regular at La Lumiere, a man whose presence commanded the room. At 45, he was the CEO of Halitech, a tech conglomerate that dominated Chicago's business scene. With his tailored suits and cold, calculating eyes, he exuded power. His table was always reserved, his orders precise, and his tips generous, but only when he was pleased. Naomi had served him dozens of times, memorizing his preferences. Rare steak, single malt scotch, no small talk. She noticed the way he spoke to his assistants, sharp and dismissive, and the way his phone never stopped buzzing with encrypted messages. What Vincent didn't know was that Naomi had been watching him closely. Months ago, she'd overheard a conversation at his table, something about offshore accounts and creative accounting. Her curiosity piqued. She began paying attention. A dropped receipt here, a careless email left open on his tablet there. Naomi wasn't just a waitress. She was a collector of truths, piecing together a puzzle that could bring down an empire. She'd confided in her lawyer friend, Aisha Carter, who worked pro bono for whistleblowers. Together, they were building a case against Halitech's illegal practices, tax evasion, worker exploitation, and fraudulent contracts. Naomi kept her evidence hidden in a locked folder on her phone, a digital vault of damning documents. She knew the risks. Vincent Hale was untouchable, a man who could ruin lives with a phone call. But Naomi wasn't driven by revenge, not yet. She wanted justice. Not just for herself, but for the countless workers Halitech had chewed up and spit out. It was a Friday night, the restaurant buzzing with Chicago's elite. Naomi was serving Vincent's table when the trouble began. His bill, totaling $1,200, included an extra bottle of wine he claimed he hadn't ordered. "This is a mistake," he said, his voice low but laced with menace. Naomi apologized, offering to correct it, but Vincent's eyes narrowed. "You think you can scam me?" he snapped, loud enough for nearby tables to turn. "I didn't touch the bill, sir," Naomi said calmly, her heart racing. She knew the error was likely a system glitch. La Lumiere's new software had been glitchy all week, but Vincent wasn't interested in explanations. He stood, his 6'2" frame towering over her, and declared, "You're a thief. I'm calling the police." The restaurant fell silent. Naomi's manager, a spineless man named Greg, stammered, but didn't intervene. Patrons whispered, their stares cutting into Naomi like knives. She felt the weight of her blackness in that moment, the unspoken assumption that she was guilty because of who she was. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. Vincent, with theatrical outrage, claimed Naomi had tried to overcharge him deliberately, pocketing the difference. It was a lie, But his word carried weight. As the officers cuffed her, Naomi's mind raced. She saw Maria's horrified expression, Greg's averted gaze, and Vincent's smug satisfaction. The cold metal of the handcuffs bit into her wrists, but it was the humiliation that stung most. "I didn't do this," she said, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to spill. The officers didn't listen. They led her out, past the gawking diners, into the Chicago night. The holding cell was cold, the fluorescent lights harsh. Naomi sat on a metal bench, her uniform still smelling faintly of steak and wine. Rage simmered in her chest, but she forced herself to breathe. She wasn't new to injustice. She'd faced it her whole life. Growing up in Englewood, she'd seen how the system chewed up people like her. But this was different. This was personal. She closed her eyes, replaying every interaction with Vincent. He hadn't just accused her. He'd targeted her, knowing she was powerless in his world. Or so he thought. Naomi's mind turned to her evidence: the emails, the bank statements, the audio recordings she'd secretly made of Vincent's shady dealings. She'd been careful, but now she realized the stakes were higher than she'd imagined. Vincent wasn't just a corrupt CEO. He was a predator who crushed anyone who threatened his empire. Naomi's thoughts were interrupted by a guard. "You've got a visitor." It was Aisha, her lawyer, a fierce woman with a reputation for taking on impossible cases. Aisha's eyes blazed with determination. "They've got nothing on you," she said. "The charge is flimsy, Vincent's word against yours. I'm getting you out." Naomi nodded, her resolve hardening. "It's not just about me anymore," she said. "He's going down. By morning." Naomi was released on bail, thanks to Aisha's relentless advocacy. The charge was weak, and the restaurant's security footage showed no evidence of tampering. But Naomi wasn't content with clearing her name. She returned to her small apartment, where her mother, Grace, was waiting. "You don't have to fight this alone," Grace said, her voice frail but firm. Naomi hugged her, feeling the weight of her mother's sacrifices. Grace had worked 2 jobs to raise Naomi and Jamal, never complaining. Now it was Naomi's turn to fight. She opened her phone, scrolling through the evidence she'd collected. There were emails detailing Halitech's tax evasion, contracts showing wage theft, and recordings of Vincent bragging about bribing regulators. It was enough to bury him if she could get it out there. Aisha had warned her about the risks. Vincent's legal team was ruthless, and whistleblowers often paid a heavy price. But Naomi was done being invisible. She created an anonymous X account and began posting snippets of the evidence, carefully redacting details to protect herself. The truth about Halitech, she wrote, attaching a screenshot of an incriminating email. She tagged local journalists, activists, and even a few of Vincent's competitors. Within hours, her post was trending. Comments flooded in. "Is this real? Halitech's been shady forever. Who's behind this?" Naomi didn't stop there. She contacted a reporter from the Chicago Tribune, someone Aisha trusted, and shared the full dossier. The reporter, a tenacious woman named Lena, was floored. "This could bring down Halitech," she said, "but you need to be ready. Vincent will come for you. Let him try," Naomi said, her voice steady. The article hit the next morning. A front page exposed titled "Halitech's House of Cards, a Waitress's Evidence Shatters an Empire." Lena had worked fast, corroborating Naomi's evidence with other sources. The story detailed Vincent's tax evasion, his exploitation of workers, and his use of shell companies to hide profits. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #NaomiFightsBack and #HailTechScandal trended worldwide. Protesters gathered outside Halitech's headquarters, chanting Naomi's name. Vincent's response was predictable. He issued a statement denying everything, calling the accusations fabrications by a disgruntled employee. He hired a PR firm to spin the narrative, painting Naomi as a liar out for revenge. But the evidence was undeniable, and the public wasn't buying it. Lawsuits from former Halitech employees began pouring in, each one echoing Naomi's claims. Naomi watched it all unfold from her apartment, her phone buzzing with messages of support from strangers. Jamal called from college, his voice thick with pride. "You're a hero, sis," he said. Naomi laughed, but the weight of her actions was sinking in. She wasn't just fighting Vincent. She was challenging a system that protected men like him. Just when Naomi thought she had the upper hand, Vincent struck back. He filed a defamation lawsuit against her, claiming she'd fabricated the evidence to ruin him. His legal team dug into her past, leaking stories to tabloids about her troubled childhood and unstable finances. The smear campaign was brutal, but Naomi refused to back down. She went live on X, telling her story in her own words: the arrest, the humiliation, the truth about Halitek. Her authenticity resonated, and the public rallied behind her. Then came the twist. One of Vincent's former assistants, a young woman named Priya, contacted Naomi. "I have more," Priya said, her voice trembling. She'd been fired by Vincent for questioning his ethics, and she'd kept records of his illegal dealings. Priya's evidence included video footage of Vincent admitting to bribing a city official. It was the final nail in his coffin. Naomi and Aisha handed the footage to Lena, who published it alongside a follow-up article. The video went viral, racking up millions of views. Vincent's empire crumbled. His board ousted him, his stock plummeted, and federal investigators raided Halitek's offices. Vincent was arrested, his smug facade replaced by panic. Naomi didn't stop at exposing Vincent. She saw an opportunity to do more. With Aisha's help, she founded the Justice Rising Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to supporting wrongfully accused workers. The foundation offered legal aid, financial support, and advocacy training. Donations poured in. Fueled by Naomi's viral story, she hired Priya as her operations manager, and together they built a team of lawyers, activists, and former whistleblowers. Naomi's life transformed. She moved her mother into a better apartment, paid off Jamal's tuition, and started planning her catering business. But her true passion was Justice Rising. She traveled the country, speaking at rallies and universities, inspiring others to fight back. Her story became a beacon for the working class, a reminder that one voice could spark a movement. 1 year later, Naomi stood at a podium in Chicago's Grant Park, addressing a crowd of thousands. "This isn't about me," she said, her voice carrying over the cheers. "It's about us. We are the backbone of this country, and we deserve justice." Behind her, a banner read "Justice Rising," empowering the silenced. Vincent's trial was ongoing, but his empire was gone. Naomi didn't attend. She didn't need to see him fall to know she'd won. Her victory wasn't personal, it was systemic. She'd exposed not just one man's corruption, but the inequalities that allowed men like him to thrive. As the crowd chanted her name, Naomi looked out at the faces, black, white, young, old, all united. Her mother, sitting in the front row, wiped tears from her eyes. Jamal, home for the weekend, grinned proudly. Naomi's heart swelled. She'd paid a steep price: her privacy, her safety, her peace, but the reward was immeasurable. She'd reclaimed her worth, and in doing so, she'd given others the courage to do the same. Her story wasn't over. It was just the beginning. Naomi Mitchell's name became synonymous with resilience. Justice Rising grew into a national force, helping thousands fight back against corporate injustice. Naomi never forgot her roots. She still visited La Lumiere, not as a waitress, but as a guest, mentoring young servers like Maria. Her catering business, Naomi's Table, became a Chicago staple, known for its soulful food and commitment to fair wages. Vincent Hale faded into obscurity, his name a cautionary tale. But Naomi's legacy endured. She'd turned adversity into triumph, proving that the cost of standing up was steep, but the reward, freedom, justice, and a life on her own terms, was worth it.